moving forward on some of the other, in contact with Sandbar to get the Erlacher Street, 17th Street, and Gum, all brand new striped. Got quotes from them, just waiting to hear back of when the scheduling, when they can come and paint those for us to get those restriped, since we did go over with the road slurry. And other than that, I'm looking for any comments.
I was just gonna ask on, I know you've been discussing it around out to the wastewater. The smell is probably getting a little worse, and I heard you say that's probably in the budget for next year, but is there anything that we could possibly do this year before the 4th to kind of cut it back, knock it down, anything?
I know the current piles that they do have, we could possibly get those moved out there on the city farm. And I know the new piles that are, as soon as they break that crust open, and it is the air rates, it does, the aroma does come through.
Well, it does. It nearly got me the other day. I passed through there. And
Is that chef talk? Aroma? Is that what you
said? Yeah, that's the chef talk.
But
I don't know.
But would greatly appreciate it, because I know it would be hard to cook out there. I'd hate to be cooking a steak out there, and that stuff's whip over on that steak, and
Yes,
you know the results of that.
It's hard for people to run up there as well in the park.
Yes.
It makes you run faster.
You got to hold your breath for a whole mile.
And I was also going to say, back when we had our rain about 2 Saturdays ago or whatever, over here on Love Street, it was kind of flooding. I forget where I was at, but on South End. Anyway, it'll come back to me, but we did have quite a bit of water. It just wasn't flowing. I don't know what went wrong.
Is it on the far south side on Dinko?
On the south side, yes.
I know we do, we are having Pettigrew and Associates. They did a little bit of a drainage study, and the city did acquire the property that is out there off of, I believe, 457. And we are having them design. It is in with the design for New Mexico DOT for that section of drainage. So we are moving forward on that and trying to get, I know the street crew did go out and clean some of those ditches up and remove some of the high spots in the ditch, so it will flow a little bit easier. And it didn't relieve that water from going down there, but I will definitely, next time it does.
We'll break the rain
Yes,
today.
sir.
Thank you.
Any other
Quick question of the Carter Avenue sewer issues. Can you give us an update on that? Why?
Yes, sir. I know the wastewater department, after we did replace those lines that are that sectional line out there, it did take that sag out of the line. They did get the high pressure tip in. They did run that line a couple times and send the camera back in, and we're still unable to get past the root balls that are penetrating down from the customer's taps. So they have stuck some chemical down there as far as trying to remove those roots, the killer. And from what we've seen on the section that we did remove and replace, is that none of those taps were ever concreted in. So from the settlement and everything, they're pushing down and there's an open hole, so the roots are just penetrating down inside.
So that's on the customer side, is that correct?
Yes, sir. From the customer, they're required from the tap into their line. The only thing the city is required or maintains is the main line in the alley.
Have you had a chance to communicate that to the customer?
Yes, we have communicated that with the customer.
Very good.
Any others to go? Everybody good? Okay. Gary?
If I may, your mayor and commission, I have nothing to report.
Questions? Discussion? Good to go, Art? Brianna? You got anything?
Nothing to report, sir.
Anna?
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Wow, I had a lot of stuff, but I guess I don't.
Commissioner Bernard?
I was just going to say to the ladies and all the people that were smoking on the plaza, city staff, workers, it was pretty awesome turnout. Had a really good time. Like I say, the rain was more than welcome, but for all those that were involved, Marvin, Star, the whole bunch, it was, y'all did a fantastic job. food was good. It was a good event.
Why, I think the only problems I've been having here lately, is I've been hearing, and I don't know if it's your part of your area, is the Parks and Recs. I'm still getting a lot of heat back from that. I don't know who's, is that yours, James? I don't know who oversees that staff, but they've been complaining about restrooms being stopped up, only having one restroom and so forth out there, and then no one being on, or whoever's on site is just sitting in their truck and not. I've just been getting some bad feedback, just put it that way. I shouldn't make comments like that, but I've been getting some rough feedback on it.
Sure. Well, Mayor and Commissioners, actually this morning at 9 o'clock, myself, Dennis, and George, those two are with Parks and Recreation, we went out and we actually inspected all of the recreation and parks facilities with the exception of Chaparral Park, pointed out some areas that needed to be improved upon, but at the same time, I know I haven't received any reports from people with complaints as far as what you had just mentioned. We encourage them to please contact us so we can, myself or either Dennis or George immediately, so we can get those problems corrected right then instead of letting them sit. But we should be seeing some improvement.
Commissioner Campos.
Just want to add, Star, it was a great movie the other night. Did you have a good turnout? The weekend? Thanks. Feel free.
Yes, we were at least 70% sold out all weekend. We did sell out our premiere night on Thursday, and the other nights were 80–85%, and then our slowest was 70% full. So it was a really good weekend. Thank you for coming. I saw several of our commissioners throughout the weekend, so thank you all for supporting it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Star.
Thank you, Star.
That was all.
Commissioner Gannon.
James, we spoke about the mailbox situation there on 17th.
Yes, sir.
I just figured I'd let everyone else be aware of the situation there. Fill them in on that a little better.
I sure will.
We have there.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, I was actually going to bring you up to speed on that. Part of the 17th Street reconstruction, right there at Washington and 17th, as well as those residences that are located on 17th in the project area, their mailboxes had to be relocated because we're using the full right-of-way, and in order to meet the ADA requirements, we had to install a sidewalk. As we were told by the post office, there is a contract carrier who delivers mail out there. Instead of your typical postal service vehicle, it's just a contract worker, and they are not allowed to step outside the vehicle. In order to put those, to get their mail, they would have to cross the sidewalk. We met out at the project site 3 weeks ago with a representative from the post office to discuss the issue. And the determination that was made by the Postal Service at that time was a central box unit to take care of the individuals who are located on 17th as well as those down on Washington. We've been waiting to find out when those central box units will be in. We are going to be pouring the slab for the Postal Service. We have the location. We finally got the location today. Since it is out in the county, we had to work with Lee County to do that. So we'll be pouring those slabs, I believe, on Wednesday and waiting for the Postal Service to install those central box units. Spoke with the representative from the post office on Friday about that. They still had to determine the number of addresses that needed, and as far as a quantity or how many units that they needed to have, it's looking like 2, but they didn't have an exact number of addresses that needed to be consolidated into those boxes. But as we told them, we'll have the slab poured and we will wait on you. They still have to label those. They have been, the post office has been referring in customers who call down there to find out what the status is. They've been referring them to the city, and we've just been communicating with them that we're working to get this resolved. But at this point right now, we are simply waiting on getting the concrete installed, which will happen on Wednesday, and for the Postal Service to perform the actual installation of those box units, which we've offered to assist with the physical installation of those. So hopefully those issues will be resolved pretty quickly, but it has been inconvenient for the customers. But this is the solution that the Postal Service has come up with.
Thank you.
I got one more thing.
Yes, sir.
So, I know this is a project that's down the road, but it's the Avenue D. I know the state came in and did some marking and different things like that for the sidewalks and curbing.
Yes, sir.
And someone had mentioned to brought to my attention that there's several signs, maybe they got in my face, several signs that are, I guess, in the right of way that'll have to be moved.
Yes, sir.
So that goes on their cost, right, to move those signs? So how's that gonna work?
Mayor and Commissioners, that is, I would think that that would fall on the property owner themselves. I did have an individual call me, I think it was on Thursday, they received an encroachment letter from DOT. They wanted to know what to do about it, and as I told them, you need to communicate with DOT to find out what the solution is going to be. I don't know that DOT is going to relocate those signs, or if that cost is totally upon the customer.
Okay. So you just need to communicate with and mix with
Yes, sir.
DOT?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief David?
Nothing reports, sir.
Chief Lazar?
Nothing reports.
Nothing.
You good to go?
Yes, sir.
How's it looking out there? Been busy?
You know, honestly, there's been a few fireworks late at night, but other than that, it hasn't been too bad. So everybody seems to be heeding that late night curfew, so.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
To ask the chief, are you getting a lot of calls, chief? Nobody gets.
Yes.
A lot of calls for late night fireworks. Yeah. I'm just curious. I was just wondering if it was happening in other neighborhoods as well.
Oh, yes. It's happening throughout town, so.
Okay. That feels better. All right.
All right, thank you. James?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, tomorrow in Hobbs at the Event Center, they have the second annual Energy Flex Conference from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Of course, you all are invited to attend. They'll have several speakers, and hopefully we'll get some economic development leads out of that. Also on Wednesday, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, they have the meeting in regards to the US 82 New Mexico 18 Downtown Main Street project. WH Pacific will be doing their presentation and also taking public comment at that time. We encourage anybody who has input to please show up to that meeting and provide that input, because they're getting close to finalizing that design. Of course, and I'm sure that Mrs. Bolt is going to be providing a more comprehensive report on this, but don't forget about next Wednesday. City Hall is going to be closed. It's the 4th of July, and we'll all be out at the party in the park. And it's going to be, I guess you would say, the revamped party in the park. There is something to do starting from 7 a.m. all the way until the fireworks go off. So it looks to be a promising event, and I know she is needing help from volunteers to help run some of those events. We have so many things going on. To kind of follow up on the fireworks, we did look at the Palmer Index. Of course, even with that rain, our drought did worsen. So as far as rescinding the fireworks ban, it doesn't look like we're going to have that dramatic of an improvement to downgrade the fireworks ban. But that's all I have.
Any questions?
Are we having an NMDOT meeting coming up?
It's Wednesday, yes, sir.
That's right, I missed that.
And then State Representative David Cahill said he plans to attend,
Okay.
so he will be there.
I do have one more item.
Yes, sir.
So I've been approached by 3 individuals a couple of weeks ago to advise us about there's a growing Facebook crowd to discuss water quality in the city. And one thing that I would like to just put out there publicly is that the city does regularly test our water for quality to make sure that it's safe for consumption, which it is. We have had no reports that would indicate anything else to the contrary. Of course, we follow all of the state and federal requirements as far as water quality testing, not because we have to, but because we want to. I mean, this cup of coffee that I'm drinking right now is city tap water. One thing we just want to get out there is that we have all of those results that we are in the process of actually uploading to the city portal. We have them on file here, but make it a little bit easier for somebody to gain access to it. We should have that uploaded to our public records portal midweek this week. But we did contact, I know there's been allegations of cover-ups and conspiracies, and that the water is contributing to high or abnormal cancer rates here in Lovington and Lee County. One, I would like to say there is no cover-up, there is no game. I know for anybody on the commission, myself, the city, or anybody out there to cover up anything, why would we want to serve contaminate or provide contaminated water to anybody in this community is beyond us. We don't receive any proceeds from any oil company or anything like that. Our finances are an open book. Anybody is welcome to come in and sit down, and we'll walk them through it. If they would like to, or they can simply look at our finances, where we don't receive any type of those payments other than an easement agreement. A couple of easement agreements that we get. We do have a saltwater disposal well that we do receive funds from. But other than that, we're not receiving any payments per se to even indicate that we have any type of a cover-up. As far as incidents of cancer, I did take it upon myself after visiting with Patrick, and Patrick is more of an expert on water and water quality, and I'd like him to speak here in a few minutes, but I did contact the epidemiology division of the state of New Mexico Department of Health and asked them, would you look into this? Do we actually have a cluster? And I gave you a copy of the email. They did ask me for some follow-up information, but we'll have more details probably here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But they say that for glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer, of course, the validated statistical data was sampled from 2011 to 2015, and they're saying that the rates for the county are not statistically different from New Mexico rates. They're saying that in Lee County we have 2.5 cases per 100,000 with a reasonable confidence interval. And then in New Mexico, without Lee County, our cases are 2.4. They are going to look into this, but we did give them the census tract information for Lovington so they could look into this. But we are being very proactive. Back in, I believe it was, back in 1998, as well as in 2003, we did regulations in regards to oil and gas activity within the city of Lovington, and especially in 2003, we passed the wellfield ordinance that really, it was the first of its kind in the state of New Mexico. And despite the protests, I actually attended that meeting as the assistant fire chief, and there was like 50 to 80 people here who were with the oil and gas sector who were protesting us, saying that this is going to kill the oil and gas industry if we approve this ordinance. And despite those objections, the city commission did take that proactive step to make sure that we preserve our drinking water, not just for people in Lovington, but everybody in the surrounding area. So I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to speak to, sir.
Well, I think having James follow up with the state to take a look at whether there are incidences that they're aware of, or more types of cancer that we see here than other parts of the state, or the same types but more numbers, I think is the best way to go right now. Certainly, and I've asked James and Wyatt to follow up on some different sampling issues, but I think making this available to the public so that if they want to take a look at it and get in touch with same people we do in Santa Fe as far as some of these issues, it's available to them, and they can make their decision based on a contact and an email as well as we can. So.
Quick question. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think we're safe because we don't have 100,000 people in the county. So they say 2.5, we don't have that many people. So, but I would like to ask Mr. Williams, how often do we check our water?
Actually, Commissioner, we actually have back T samples that are taken monthly, 15 samples a month, and they're separate. There's 3 different sections in town, so they do jump from town, different parts of town, and get sent to the state. It's a state requirement because of the population that we do have. I know quarterly we do pair up with Chevron, since Chevron has out in our well fields, and they do take a number of samples that are taken quarterly off of each one of our wells. The state samples, which is a variety of samples that is required by the state, and more than willing to take any sample on them, and those are taken twice a year. And we do have, once a year, we do take, it's TTHMs and halocytics, and we're required by the state to take those every September and sent off. So we do have multiple tests that are taken yearly and monthly.
If I'm, Mayor and Commissioners, if you recall, what was it, 2 years ago?
It was
When we
March
had
2015.
the E. coli result, that was a result of our testing. Of course, that proved that the follow-up results proved that it was more than likely a sample that was contaminated aside from being in the water. So our water, you know, that's why we test, is to make sure things like that don't occur.
Yeah, just one quick comment, I guess. I can certainly understand and appreciate the concern that these folks are bringing. I just barely found out about it this evening in speaking with Patrick before the meeting, but also I can understand the fear that might come from something like this. Fear leads to paranoia, and I just want to make sure, and I appreciate, James, that you can provide this information. You've dealt with it in contacting the state. Let me ask you this, though. Have these folks that are concerned, have they brought forth any statistical data, any evidence, anything to support their claims, as far as you know?
No, sir. I have yet to speak to any of the individuals who I guess you would say are the moderators or coordinators of this group of individuals. They haven't reached out to me. I've seen their information, and they're essentially going back and looking at the spills that did occur out in the oil field back in 1995, and getting data from that. And of course, at that point, we did get involved, or the city did get involved with that, and that's kind of what led to the process of making sure that, you know, we secured our drinking water supply. But I haven't spoken to them, so from what I understand, I don't know exactly where they may be getting their information as far as saying that we have 50 cases of this, other than, you know, a list of individuals who have unfortunately had cancer or passed away due to the complications of cancer. So as far as any, you know, their process, as far as having, you know, scientific data that has a high confidence interval, as far as being proven statistically, I haven't seen anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to public comment.
Mayor, Commissioners, I just wanted to thank the city of Lovington. I can't tell you how much work they all did to make Smoking on the Plaza go through. We had police officers that were helping me move giant light towers. I had the fire department moving those giant trees, and they were not very light. I had the street department till like 2 o'clock in the morning working with me in terms of the street closure and some little hiccups that we had here and there. But really, thanks to everybody that helped out. It was a great event, and we're looking forward to our next one, which is going to be July 21st, so in a few more weeks, and that was all.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's Leslie with the Chamber of Commerce. Mara had a great event. We really enjoyed Smoking on the Plaza, especially the ribs were delicious. And we're continuing with Party in the Park July 4th, which is next week. I do want to say that I appreciate addressing the problem with the odor at the park, because I've had citizens ask me about that. So I'm glad that there's some proaction being taken for that. We have a lot of events next Wednesday and a lot of new events. I also want to thank the two chiefs because they've been fantastic with kind of helping me I know the fireworks are going to be great this year. We're really excited about that. And then, of course, the police department being out there. So the city of Lovington has been great. And we are really looking forward to a fantastic kind of, again, revamping event and just getting the excitement back into Lovington, and then continuing on our whole kind of Summer of Lovington campaign. So I invite everyone to be out there next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Evelyn Holguin with the Lovington EDC. I wanted to give everyone an update of the last 2.5 weeks. I've been gone since June the 8th, returned Friday afternoon. Just wanted to give everyone an update. I've been in Calgary, Canada for about a week, a little bit over a week. We had 36 meetings set up with oil and gas businesses. It was a very crazy week. Everyone wants to go to the Permian Basin. Everyone. Out of those 36 meetings, probably about 30 of them want to come to Lee County, West Texas area. So we do have a lot of leads at this time. Those leads have been coming in over the weekend. The partnership is now at home as well. Over the weekend we've had, I think we're up to 4 right now. So the EDC will be turning in PROs, which are potential recruitment opportunities, submitting for our available properties here in town, as well as the cheese plant. The following week, I was in Washington, D.C. for Select USA International Trade. We had 48 meetings set up with companies, have a lot of leads, lots of leads. Everyone wants to come into the U.S. I mean, everyone's, with the new rules and regulations that the new administration has enacted, everyone wants to set up shop in the U.S. We have a lot of potentials for Lovington. And just wanted to give everyone an update and let them know that we'll be bringing a few projects forward here in the next week or two. We're playing catch up. Well, I'm playing catch up right now, as I've been gone for a while. Catch up not only at work but at home as well. So I just wanted to give everyone an update of my activities in the last 2.5 weeks. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
What's the status on the cheese plant, the damage and so forth?
Well, we would have to renovate the whole front portion of it. We would have to knock down all the offices in the second level, but it is doable. I mean, the facilities in the back, the warehouses were not damaged. They were smoked out a little bit, but not much. But we would just renovate the front of the facility, but everything else is still intact. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
I have a quick question for the audience, actually. Is there something wrong with this side of the room?
No, I see.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought Ron was keeping y'all from going right now.
We're all preparing to leave.
Easy exit, huh?
Okay, if there's no other comment, moving on to action items, James.
Mayor and Commissioners, the first item, as well as the following 4 resolutions that we have, are adoption of annual community development block grant resolutions that we have. Of course, the first one, it summarizes essentially what different programs that we would need to have with let me pull this up right here. With our citizen participation plan, our fair housing plan, residential anti-displacement relocation, our Section 3 plan, and procurement. We are required to adopt this as an overall summary document and then also to adopt each individual policy. We did adopt these last June as well. We currently have the CDBG program that's ongoing at this time. So kind of a brief overview of each component. Citizen participation, basically this means that we truly embrace the Open Meetings Act as set by the state of New Mexico, and that when we're considering CDBG projects like we did for the Jefferson Avenue H and 2nd Street projects, that we did have public meetings. We did have, I believe it was 2 public meetings, one here as well as one at the Senior Citizen Center prior to formal adoption of that project. Fair housing, this means that we do follow the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which basically means that we support non-discrimination when it comes to the sale, rental, and leasing and financing of housing throughout the city of Lovington, based on all of the race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, or national origin. As far as residential anti-displacement, this is actually a federal policy that was enacted back in 1970, which essentially means that if a CDBG project causes displacement of somebody from their home, that we provide assistance possible to find them, to relocate them somewhere within the community. Our Section 3 plan is a HUD requirement. Basically, it means that we try to the greatest extent possible when hiring for these particular projects. We provide job training, employment, and contracting opportunities for low and very low income residents as a direct result of the particular project. And then as far as our procurement, this basically just means that we follow state procurement code as well as federal procurement requirements. So we're required to adopt this particular resolution as well as resolutions 50 through 54 on an annual basis.
James, let me get a motion real quick.
I am so sorry. I thought somebody
I think it's because normally we wait for your non-action items. So, yes, sir. We're going to do it. We got to do a motion real quick.
I understand that,
yes,
but can we make a motion where we adopt all of these at the same time instead of go individually through these?
It's all. They all tie into one another.
We can do that under a consent agenda, correct?
I think, yeah.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolutions 2018-49 through 2018-54 under a consent agenda as presented.
Second that.
Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Any other?
I can repeat everything.
Would you mind?
Can you read that back?
Could you just play it back, David?
Is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2018-55, approval of the MOU between the county and the police department.
Second.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is a MOU that allows the police department, let me rephrase that, we have to have one signed every 4 years when we get a new sheriff that gives us the authority to the city officers to be able to continue investigations or to assist the county on calls. It just basically says that the city would be commissioned or sworn in, not the city, but the officers, by the new sheriff that's coming into office. Like I said, it's been done every 4 years. Unfortunately, since the other election, we've had to do this 3 previous times. So,
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we consider resolution 2018-56, approval of first quarter fiscal year 2019 lodgers tax event funding.
Seconded.
A motion second. James?
Yes. Mayor, Commissioners, so lodgers tax, we're taking a different approach this year because we've made some encumbrances on the lodgers tax fund in order to fund municipal operations. So right now with our FY19 revenue estimates, we're basing this off of this current fiscal year that we're ending June 30th. Based on our revenues that we've received this year. So we're estimating, and you can actually find this detail in the lodgers tax financial report link. We're estimating about $114,000 in revenue. So we're very hopeful that we'll receive more. but this is actually very conservative as far as estimating our lodging here in Lovington. So a couple of things, we have some budgeted obligations we pay for 50% of our Chamber of Commerce funding through the professional services agreement. We have Main Street, a portion of the Main Street funding through our professional services. Our July 4th fireworks and support for that event, we have budgeted $4,250 towards that. Then we also have the city entry sign replacement, which we started setting back funds last year through lodger's tax. So a portion of this, as well as some general fund, will go towards the replacement of those signs that we're going to begin that process of selecting the new design after July 1st and the July 4th holiday before we bring something back to the City Commission. But per state statute, as far as how lodger's tax funds are dispersed, based on our estimated revenues, we're looking at a total of $48,644 to distribute for event programs, as we have in the past. So when you look, the Lodgers Tax Board did meet last Thursday, or last Monday. They did meet, and we can look at this two different ways, and this is in the Lodgers Tax recommendations. So if you take the roughly $48,000 that we have, and if you budget this at $12,000 a quarter, you have the maximum recommended funding, which is the second, on the right-hand side of the table, you have the maximum recommended funding, which if you base this off of our funding formula that we've used for the past couple of years, the total amount to be dispersed is $18,665.69. However, if you adhere to our $12,000, just doing everything equally per quarter, you can see what that does to each individual event. So either recommendation we can afford. Now, we typically have in our first quarter and our fourth quarter, those are our heavy, large events that we have, where the greatest amount of funds are dispersed typically. So if we went with the maximum recommended funding of $18,665, what that means is it does reduce the amount of funding available for the rest of the year, obviously, or if we just stick to our $12,000, we could do that. We are going to be meeting call a special meeting of our Lodgers Tax Board so we can look at this. We would like to stay within our budget. Granted, we have some unusual encumbrances this year on Lodgers Tax with the replacement of our signs that is drastically needed. So it has reduced the overall amount for the events, but discussing some things with some of our recipients of Lodgers Tax funds, maybe reevaluating another way to disperse Lodgers Tax funding to where we make sure that the events that really provide benefit to the community through the use of Lodgers Tax, it's a more equitable and more beneficial use of those funds. So at this point, really, our recommendation is either do the maximum recommended funding, since this is an event-heavy quarter, typically our spring and summer events, larger, bring in more Lodgers Tax revenue, or you can stick with the budget recommended. Either way, we can afford that.
Any discussion? Anybody want to make do we need to make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, I made that
You want to amend that motion to adopt? What did you?
To make it the higher amount.
Go big or go home, right?
Go big. Yeah. Is that fair enough, like your Patrick?
I think so.
Who's second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to consider accounts payable.
Second.
Gary, please.
If I may, your mayor and commission, as you see on our accounts payable report, the very first item was for imprint expenditure, which was basically just a new banner for the youth center. And as you move down, we get down to the Audie's copier repair. I was unclear because I didn't ask the chief if we were buying a conference table or if that was a repair, something to do with the table.
It was tables and chairs and something else that went with that. There's 3 different things we got from there.
Okay, so that's what those expenditures are for. And I love the Betsy Ross flag down as you go down, Betsy Ross flag and girls. It was time for us to upgrade our flags at the park, both the U.S. and the New Mexico flags, so we bought new flags for them. And Blaine Industrial is the company we always do a lot of work with, but as usual, these are basically just supplies for the wastewater department. And as you move down, a company that we don't normally buy stuff is California Content Supplies, and in that particular case, again, it was just more wastewater supplies. And as you can see, we're still working with consensus planning, and they're not finished with the MRA plan update, but that $3,698 is another payment to the consensus planning for the MRA update. And then the CRI, CPAs and advisors is a continuation on the contract we've had with them, working on the cash balances, the work that they're doing for us to bring us in compliance with the DFA report. So we haven't spent all that money yet. We're still trying to get more work out of them, doing some account reconciliations and things of that nature. And then as you move down, you'll see it wasn't a very large expenditure, but that $1,495 with Demco software, that was just a software that the library had to buy. And then if you move down, and I thought this was interesting because I'm not accustomed to seeing us contract with a lawn care company, but the Fernandez Lawn Care, we needed the grass, had to kill all the weeds and stuff around the new water yard. And it was actually cheaper to contract and have somebody come out and do the work than it was for us to buy the chemicals. So that's why we have that there. And then the GT distributors, we finally got some ammo for the police department. And then with Harmeyer, it seems we're always doing some kind of repair, but in this case we had a couple of different lift stations, a number 8 and a number 2 that needed some work. And then with Jay's Incorporated, what's interesting about that $4,409 is installation of our new air conditioning units at the top of the theater. And then of course, the Lee County Electric was our second largest expense at the $49,000. And then if you flip over to the next page, of course, we have the P&D was our third largest expenditure at the $22,000. And then if you look down, I wasn't able to ask the police chief on this, but the Porter Lee Corporation is some kind of annual software. I didn't fully understand what that was.
It's our evidence system. It's on a totally separate system. It's the system that keeps track of the supplies, not the supplies, but the items that we actually put into evidence.
Ah, that's awesome. I like that. But of course, that's a necessary expense, an annual expense for the police department. And as you can see, our largest expense was Ramirez and Sons. That was our single largest, $167,000. And of course, that was for their work on Love and Washington Street, and then a little bit on Dogwood as well.
I got a question on that.
Yes, sir.
Did the county pay for some of that? Did
I'd turn that over to the city manager.
If I may, the agreement that we have is that we pay for it and the county reimburses us. So we have not yet, since the project's not 100% complete, submitted that invoice to the county for that repayment. But yes, sir, they actually are paying for more than 50% of the project.
There's another one we missed, the Shoreline, $9,000.
Yes, sir. That's what I was going to address next. What I love is the title on that. We bought some cat condos for our animal control. They needed more storage to separate the cats from the dogs, and it was necessary for them to invest in some new little, as it's titled here, cat condos for the cats.
Good. I've got a lot of cats I need to get rid of.
Yeah.
I got 10 right now. 8 babies.
And then, of course, another expense that isn't normal is that Swank Motion Pictures, but we're not competing with the theater, but that's for our movies in the parks. And then with SWAT this year, this particular payment was a little out of the ordinary. And again, this is all primarily a police expenditure related to some EVGA, PSU replace, and wire setup thing. I didn't fully understand what those were.
Which one, Gary?
On the SWAT LLC for the $886. It had the acronyms, you know, the EVGA,
The
PS.
antivirus on all the systems, and they come in and make sure that everything's working properly.
Okay.
It's good that we have them. And then Tom's Sharp Shop, it's that time of year where parks equipment needs to be replaced. So we bought a new trimmer, a new blower, and we even had to repair a pole saw for the Parks Department. And then the Tyler Technologies expense is related to the Department of Finance. They require us now to submit our reports quarterly through their portal, and they also require us to report things using their chart of accounts. So we had to contract with Tyler Technologies to create what is called a crossover report, so that when we submit our budgets and everything related to what we're doing to the Department of Finance, we're staying in compliance with what the DFA requires. So that's why we have that expenditures with Tyler Technology. And then Vortex, if you skip down past all the visas and stuff, we look at the Vortex, our splash pad actually got a little wear and tear, and we had to replace a couple of parts, a little bucket and something else, I can't remember what it was. And then the Water Master Irrigation Supply, again, it's that time of year, we got to do some repair and maintenance on the sprinkler system out at the Chaparral Park and other places. So we had to buy some sprinklers and solenoids for those. And then the last one is at the WHB Incorporated, the Parks Department. We had to remove and install a pump, and this is for our sprinkler system, but this is also the pump that pumps the water out of our little Chaparral Lake and helps distribute that water to water things. So I'm available if you have any other questions.
Any discussion?
I'm good.
He's pretty well covered it all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Got it.